Hi everyone, it's Jessica Dybzinski. Thank you for being with me today, and I do want to apologize for my voice as I am battling an illness. Now, for the month of February, the Makers with Heart are all going to be creating with this Operation Smile stamp set called Your Smile. It is a beautiful stamp set, and it does raise money for a really great cause. I thought it would be perfect for these 15 photos that I have of a trip to my grandma's house a few years ago with my kids and my sister and my niece. And it was just a beautiful summer day of playing outside. And as you can see, the stamp set has a lot of really fun summer type images on it. Now, recently I did get my Gnomes for Spring paper pack and sticker sheet in the mail, and I haven't had a chance to play with them yet. And even though it does say, Gnomes for Spring, I thought that the colors in here went really well with the colors in my photo, and they seemed just as summery to me as they did springy. So I think I'm going to try using some of these. I love that cloud paper. I do love this plaid here, although it brings in maybe a little bit more yellow than I'm really seeing in my photos. And then this paper here, you can see both sides to it. One side has the gnomes and the other side is just kind of more of a gardening feel. I decided to use that one that has all the garden stuff on it just because it had all of the colors on it, and I thought that was a good way to bring, everything together. Now, for my double page layout here, I do have a lot of photos, and I love patterns anyway, but especially when I'm trying to fit this many pictures onto a spread, I really love turning to a pattern book of some sort. And so I am working out of the new sketchbook, the 12 by 12 sketchbook from the creative design team that they have recently released. And so if you haven't had a chance to check that out yet, make sure you do, because there are some really awesome sketches in that pattern book. And so I am using one here that actually calls for 11 photos, but I'm going to do 2 of my photo walls here with a flip flap. So you can see I'm layering some extra photos in a couple of spots. That allows me to work in just a few more. So I'm going to have a total of 15. I'm thinking that up here is where I'm going to stamp my title using that Operation Smile stamp set. And I think I might do a little bit of ink blending behind it as well, and probably down here in this corner where the journaling is meant to be. So originally, it had been a while since I'd played with my Distress Oxide inks, and I thought, what a perfect time to pull out tumbled glass, because I think that color works really nicely with this glacier color in my pattern paper. And maybe I will do some Distress Oxide blending instead of using my Close to My Heart inks. So I kind of moved my papers and I started in a spot that I knew would be covered. And even though I was using a light hand, I could tell almost immediately that, that was not looking the way that I wanted it to, which happens sometimes. Sometimes things end up being a bit of a hot mess. And I know sometimes when you do ink blending, it can look a bit like a mess before you end up, doing all the things and covering it with your embellishments and what. But even so, I thought, no, that's definitely not the look I was going for. So not a big deal. I was able to flip my piece of white daisy cardstock over. It is a really nice thickness, so even though I had all that ink on the other side, you couldn't see anything through. So I'm going to do a different sort of ink blending. So I'm grabbing part of my round sponge here and just cutting a little section off and using my glacier ink, and again, testing in a spot that I know will be hidden. And I'm just going to pounce my sponge into the ink pad and then onto the paper. Now, this is a much slower application of color. It definitely takes a while to build it up to, the saturation that you would like it to be. But it was much softer of a look, and that was what I was hoping for this part here behind my title. I wanted it to look a little bit like the sky, because there is that really fun sun image on the stamp set and the cloud too. And so I'm thinking I'm going to do kind of a cloud and sky scene up here. And so I wanted it to be just a really soft blue. All right, now I am pulling in my 3x4 flip flaps, like I said, so that I can add even more pictures to this layout. So I've already gone ahead and glued the other photos down on this page, but I want to make sure that I'm going to get my flip flap down in a way that ends up being lined up correctly. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to I'm going to put the photo in, and there's a little plastic seam around the edge of the photo now that it is inside that flip flap. So I can't line up the flip flap at the same level that the other photos are at. I'm going to have to slide my ruler down a little bit. So I'm just holding it in place so that when this flip flap is closed, where will that photo line up perfectly? And then I'm going to pull a little bit of that release tape out of the way and then get it started and then hold it in place while I pull the rest of the release tape off, just to make sure that it stays put and goes down straight. And then I will go ahead and put my bottom photo glued down. I'm going to slide my ruler back up so that everything's all aligned. And then now you can see when I close that flip flap that top photo just lines up perfectly. Now, I do like to cut a slit in my page protector so that sits on the outside of the page protector. And I do have other videos that show how I do that. So I will link to those in the description box down below. Now, I am stamping directly onto my layout, which is definitely always a bit of a scare. So I made sure to practice on a scratch piece of paper first. I'm being very careful to make sure that I don't have any stray ink on my block. And then I'm also really holding my stamp down for a few seconds to make sure that ink soaks into the paper. And it turned out great. But, definitely take your time when you're stamping directly onto a layout. Okay, now as for my other images, I did stamp them with intense black ink so that way I could color them in with my markers. I thought with the sun, it might be fun to do a little splotch of honey butter ink color onto my paper before stamping rather than just coloring in the sun itself with a marker. I thought that would kind of give that halo of yellow orangeness around the sun's rays that might make it look a little bit different from how it would be if I just colored it in with markers. And so I'm just kind of testing it out here. I will fussy cut that out, and I'm not sure yet, but I either will use the fussy cut version or stamp it directly onto my layout now that I kind of know what that looks like. I've gone ahead and colored in the other images and fussy cut those out as well. And like I said, I did want to build a little sky scene up here over top of where I've done that glacier ink. You can't really see the glacier ink here on the video, but in person you can see it just has that soft blue shadowing up there in the top corner and then also in the bottom where I have stamped my journaling lines. Now, I did spend a lot of time, more time than I care to admit, moving all of these different pieces around my page. It took me forever to kind of really figure out what I wanted to put where. That bird is so stinking cute, and I just could not find a spot for him. I try moving things all over. I did cut this circle out of limeade cardstock, which is the same color as some of that green that I have in the layout. And I thought maybe I could use that as like a landing place for some of these images. So, I try moving the circle around with the bird. And then I remembered that I had these acrylic shapes that go along with the Gnomes for Spring paper pack. They are really fun. They're just that bright pink color, which I thought would be fun to bring in since I had it in the butterfly and the rainbow. And there are butterflies of various sizes and then also flowers of various sizes in those acrylic shapes. So I'm grabbing the two smallest size butterflies from those acrylic pieces, and I think I'm going to use them to kind of scatter around the bigger stamped butterflies. So I did stamp another butterfly. I'll color him off camera so that I can add one more to the page. And then you can see I did end up putting a little bit of ink down directly to my paper and stamping that sun on it rather than using the fussy cut one out. And then for the butterfly, I put a little bit of foam tape behind each of their wings, and then I glued the body down directly to the page. It just makes the wings look like they're lifting off the page a little bit. Okay, there is still a lot of white space up at the top, and I was not quite sure what to do with it. So I added a little bit more of that glacier ink just to kind of draw that sky scene over to the right-hand page. And then for a couple of the finishing touches, I used my clear shimmer brush to add a little sparkle to the butterfly's wings and then each of the clouds. And then there were also some white dots on the butterfly wings that I didn't want to leave white, so I used my silver stickles just to fill in on top of those white dots. And that's pretty much going to be it. I might stare at this for a while and end up adding something to that bottom corner of the left-hand page next to my son. I tried for a while to, like I said, put that bird there, but he was facing in the wrong direction. And so, yeah, after looking at it for a while, I was like, no, it definitely needs something. So I went back to the stamp set, and there are a bunch of really pretty heart images on there. So I'm going to stamp some of the hearts in glacier ink, the bigger sized image there next to my son. And then I'm going to take that itty bitty heart and kind of stamp it around the title and the rainbow. Not sure I love that, actually. That's kind of one of those things that I do at the end that I'm like, okay, stop now before you get too carried away. I did want to show you another layout that I made a while ago using the same stamp set. It's so great for creating all sorts of different titles. You can kind of mix and match the stamps on there to make it say different things to go along with that big word smile. And so this one I just did with my son and his little Mickey Mouse stuffed animal. So thank you so much for being here with me today. Again, this is a Makers with Heart collaboration, and I will leave links in the description box down below to not only all the products that are available, but to the other ladies' videos as well, so that you can get lots of inspiration for this really awesome stamp set. It does raise money for Operation Smile, so $7 of every sale gets donated to Operation Smile, and that just makes me smile. All right, thank you for joining me, and happy crafting. See you next time. Bye.